good afternoon. As the new president of the Great Britain Philatelic Society, I welcome you. And we've always had very close relationships with both the Swiss group and the German group. And it is a particular pleasure to today to welcome you to this display, this multiple display. It's the first one we have tried with many different speakers. Can I just remind you, this only works when people keep to a time limit. So we are aiming to try and do this in an hour, and there are 10 speakers. And with some question times as well, that's about five minutes per person. So thank you. Without more ado, I will hand over to our first speaker, a gentleman of the Swiss group, which is James Heel. And James, over to you.
So I'm allowed to speak now, I can see. Okay, so good afternoon and welcome to all of you from Berlin. Thanks, Howard, for letting the two German-speaking societies have the opportunity to show some items from our collections. If you can click, please. Howard? So that's the Swiss one and the German one, and then coming up the GBPS, and then we've got the date coming up. So it's 10 speakers altogether. As you heard, there's 5 from the Swiss Society, 9 from the German Society, so that makes 9 and 5 makes 10. Okay, so some of us are in both. I think this is a great opportunity for everyone to take part in meetings as well, which is wonderful for us, as it's usually such a problem getting over, and there's so many wonderful presentations you do during the year. I hope you'll be having plenty of them. We'll be able to join in while we're carrying on. So next one, please, Howard. Yeah, one of my main collecting areas is British postage dues. In all its forms, it started as a natural expansion to my single franking collection, and has since gone into all sorts of usages. So this is a nice big boy with 32 Edward Crown halfpennies, just in here for fun. As an introduction. Next slide, please. Yeah, since the introduction of penny postage in January 1840 and the introduction of postage dues in 1914, double deficiency on underpaid item was levied with a whole range of hand stamps, like on the left. And since the demise of proper postage due stamps, the yellow labels have come into their own. Here's the second generation. I think it might be the third generation, I'm not sure, but not so relevant. So next one, please. So now to my 3 items I want to show you. The first one, registered post. Yeah, it's always been a bit of a headache. It's always had to be handed in at a post office. And many people didn't understand this or just ignored it. It's a bit like wearing masks today in the coronavirus atmosphere. So in this case, from 1893, the sender obviously wanted the item to be registered, as he put 4p on the cover to cover the 2p postage and for under 4 ounces, and 2p registration fee, which had been in place since 1878. He also registered in the top left. That's his handwriting still, and but probably didn't add the blue lines himself. I'm not quite sure. Just throw it in some letterbox somewhere in London. So it's from West Central. It was postmarked afterwards. So when it turned up at the West Central office, they noticed his instructions. Sure, it should be registered. So presumably they added the blue lines, stamped the R on the top left-hand corner, and the WC 6p down in the right, and posted out, of course, WC between the 2 pairs of stamps. Post out, of course, POOC is one of those great, strange areas. General term for compulsory registration, basically covering items not handed in at the post office, but deemed to require registration, which was originally set out at double the registration fee. So why was it 6p they charged? The registration was the POOC rate was reduced to 8p in 1862, when the registration fee went down from 6p to 4p. But when it went down to 2p in 1878, they conveniently didn't change the POOC charge. So that stayed the same, whether intentionally or forgetfully, we will never know exactly why they didn't reduce it. So the tuppence registration fee already paid was allowed against the total registration. So Mr. Lee only had to pay sixpence. I bet he enjoyed that. So next one, please. So the second item, 60 years on, now in the present reign, which I think is rather a fun cover, a really long one, which was originally correctly franked with a further 9 shillings worth of half-crown stamps. You can just make out in this red area where they were originally stuck to the cover. And so they weren't, so what happened, presumably someone tore them off at some stage, some naughty person, before the cover actually reached the cancelling post office or somewhere. So that was picked up. I think it must have been in New Zealand. There's the red to pay 18 shillings mark doesn't look at all British. So I think that was added in New Zealand. And then when it got to the UK, just above the threepence postage dues, there's the Birmingham mark with 75. It's a bit faint on the picture here, but they worked out as well, yeah, that 18 shillings above 5 ounces needed to be paid, so twice 9 shillings. Also, what I'd like on this cover is they put on this post office note on the bottom left. Would you please return the cover of this letter? It's required for official purposes. So whether it was returned or not, we'll never actually know. So it got onto the philatelic market at least. And I think another fun thing about this cover is that the 2 lowest actual stamped to 2 threepences on the bottom, they are Tudor Crown postage dues, and as such, about the scarcest postage dues in the catalogue, as they were replaced a year later by the next ones, the Edward Crown, and the penny halfpenny underpayment, so threepence postage due, was fairly unusual. You could only actually get it on an unpaid printed paper item would have qualified for this normally. So all in all, I think that's quite fun. I've got 2 of these actually, which I picked up at the same time. So they're both only fronts, unfortunately, but you don't see that on here, so forget that, please. So next one, please. Yeah, and the last one, sanctions are beginning to bite. Yes, UDI was part of my political upbringing and political coming of age back in the 60s. Normally, of course, underpaid or unpaid post from abroad was annotated at source and processed on arrival according to the various changing rules which were going on. But here, not quite, because the stamps, the independent stamps, were perfectly valid in Rhodesia where they were put on. And there was lots of confusion in Britain at the time, what Rhodesian stamps were valid, which weren't valid, and if they weren't valid, what do you do with them? I've got about 30 covers with the independent stamp on, and over a dozen different postage due ratings, from actually nothing up to about 8 and 6. So a complete confusion. In this instance, the sixpence was considered okay for postage. The 2, which was normal actually, as it wasn't overprinted, didn't have any mention of independence. And the postage due in England was at the time worked out at the standard foreign surface rate rather than airmail, 6pence base. So they've got it through to 10 bob being needed to pay. It's a very unusual usage with
Right.
10 shillings.
James, we're going to have to stop you. You're overrunning at the moment. So...
Yes, I've got another. That's great. I'm just at the end. It's the only single use I've got. So thanks to Harold Wilson for this. Next page, please, which is thank you. Any questions or comments?
There are no questions in the chat at the moment, James.
Great. Good. Okay. So just the next one, please, Howard. So, and Renee, if you can unmute yourself now. Renee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hear me? You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Would you go back to the first slide, please? Thank you. I would like to give a brief presentation about the introduction of first permanent official airmail service between in Great Britain between London and Paris, 1919-1920. That is what I'm started collecting a couple of years ago. And this was the airmail was the official airmail service was motivated by the pioneers of aviation like Hall Thomas or Handley Page or even Instone, which are always addressed to the Postmaster General to establish such like this service for more rapid postal service between Great Britain and the continent. So the establishment of the service was on the 10th of November 1919, and it was transported by a daily service, letters, postcard, printed paper, samples, and also registered mail. Not allowed were insured mail and parcels, you know, airplanes could drop to earth. So that might be the issue why the not putting insured mail and parcels on the flight. The fee was very simple. It was for the airmail express service, it was 2 shillings 6 per ounce. So it was the only time that the express fee was bound on the weight and not on the service. And additional, the standard letter fee rate came above on top, and the further steps for too. Next slide, please. Here you see a first day registered cover, and dated the 10th of November 1919, but it was not flown because there are some foggy condition on Surrey Hills. For example, the flight magazine stated for this day. And here you see the 2 shilling 6 seahorse. That is the express airmail fee paid, and then the 4 pence and a half pence for registration and standard fee, and the standard postage fee. And approx 300 covers were delivered on the first day. A lot of them were addressed to Mr. Spohr in Paris, and so it seems that he was a collector, and therefore there's very philatelic covers are around dated the 10th of November. And they are also without registration and with registration. And I think normal without Mr. Spohr's address on it, they should be rare. And yeah, that next slide, please. That was the start of my collection. I bought this, I saw this one at eBay Germany, and got this one for a very low amount of money. And but that is a cover with the highest existing airmail fee to Paris, which I know. It's the 5th weight scale from the 3rd of December 1919 that covers up to 5 ounces for this cover, so 12 shillings 6 airmail express fee. And there you see also that it is 2 shillings 6 per ounce. So, and I won't tell you how much I paid, then you will laugh. So next slide, please. That from the 12th of May, starting the service changed. It was serviced twice a day now, and the airmail fee was not more bound to an express fee. So the airmail fee is just 2 shillings per ounce, and express fee was additional if chosen on top. So here you see a cover from the 30th of June 1920, covers 2.5 standard cover, standard fee, 2 shilling airmail fee not exceeding 1 ounce, and 6 pence express fee. Covers with showing only the airmail fee without express are quite rare. I just noticed a couple of them. Next slide, please. On the 22nd of July 1920, the fee was reduced to 2 pence airmail fee and per ounce, and just the standard postage fee on top, because the Postmaster General and some other very important people found out that the 2 shillings 6 pence and even the 2 shilling were really too expensive to make this service more acceptable to the public. So they decided that 2 pence would be more affordable for the public. And with the 22nd of July, it would be affordable for the public. Here you see a cover from Fred Melville to the always everybody's known Theodore Champion in Rue Drouot in Paris. And it's showing the 2 pence airmail fee and 2.5 pence standard postage. And thank you for, next slide, please. Thank you for your Aufmerksamkeit. And if you have some questions and comments, please let me know.
Hi, Rene. There's one question has come in, which is from Chris Platt, saying, do you know which airports were used in the UK and Paris in 1919?
1919, it was in Paris. It was what is this? Was B in Paris, Breguet, and in London it was at first it was also Croydon.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Move on. Phil.
Okay. So I'm hello and good afternoon from Hamburg. I'd like to talk about a couple in love, and yeah, just need to see the next slide. I think it's it's a unfortunate love affair. You certainly know about Princess Margaret and Peter Townsend, Group Captain Peter Townsend, a love affair which started in 1951. Princess Margaret being the youngest sister of the current queen. She was 21 years old then. And yeah, you've heard about this love affair. And I found 2 covers. So you may show the next slide and next one, please. 2 covers which I think belong together. This is a cover sent on the 27th August 1951 from Balmoral Castle in Scotland. It's addressed in the hand of somebody I didn't know before, because you see on the upper right postmark official paid Balmoral Castle, and on the upper left the cipher, the hand-stamped cipher of George VI, and some initials in the lower left. I couldn't read them before, but I tried to find out, because I also have the letter which was inside, which was signed by Peter. The letter is about the health of King George VI. And finally, I found out it was Peter Townsend, the equerry to King George VI, and yeah, the lover of Princess Margaret. So this is a letter he sent from Balmoral, where he stayed, to a Mrs. John Mulholland, which in fact was Olivia Mulholland, the lady in waiting to the royal household. And he was entitled to use free mail, so he didn't use any stamps. But I also found a second cover, which is on the next slide. I'll show the cover only and I'll tell. This is the second cover, which is quite similar, with a postmark from 28th August 1951, sent registered with the label from Balmoral Castle, and also the hand-stamped cipher of King George VI. And on the left, lower left, you see the little M, and this M is the M for Margaret. So this is a cover which was in fact sent by Princess Margaret just one day later. And I also have the letter which was inside. It's addressed to Bennett, who's a servant at Birkhall. Birkhall was a house near Balmoral, also in Aberdeenshire, in Scotland, which was used by the Duke and the Duchess of York. So the father and the mother of the princesses Margaret and Elizabeth. So she's thanked Mr. Bennett, the servant, and all the staff at Birkhall for a present for her 21st birthday. So in fact, these two covers, I think, belong together because they mark the beginning of this love affair. Because Peter Townsend suggests in his biography that this love affair started when they celebrated the 21st birthday of Princess Margaret then in Scotland. But some say he only says it was in Scotland because she was too young before, but they also met before. So maybe the love affair already started earlier. So these are two covers belonging together and documenting the love affair of the princess and the group captain. So if you have any questions, I see a question in the chat. Oh, yeah, this is for the email. So
yeah, it's a question for Renee. We'll come back to that later.
Yeah. So if you have any questions or comments.
No, doesn't look like there's any questions at this time.
Hand over to Rudolf.
Okay. It's my part?
Yes.
Yes, greetings to all friends of philately and postal history. I would like to thank our British friends for the invitation to speak here. A very good idea to stay in touch during these times. Today I talk about two collectibles, but first and foremost about the people who make up the spirit of these very collectibles. We start with the rarity of philatelic literature and a teacher of mine. Some of you will have known him, Leon Janssen. Eons ago, when I was still young, in early 90s, Leon helped me to take my first steps on the way to become a postal historian. I remember him trying to explain the cross-channel mail to me, trying. The internet was still far away from what it's today, and communication was based on letters typed with typewriter or written by hand. Incredible. When I visited him at home, I wanted to have his sources in copy, but I can't get them. Years later, Leon had already died. I heard that there should be a printed version of his postal conventions. But where could I find it? In 26, when I became a member of FgGB, attended my first annual meeting in Paderborn, a nice meeting. At diner, I met Martin Blank, and he owned these books and was prepared to sell them. What a surprise. wonderful. A year later, in a parking lot in front of a stamp fair in the Netherlands, the dial was finally accomplished. According to Martin, Leon had only 5 copies printed, and I'm very proud of these books. You can see there are some more books in my home. The next topic is a solved puzzle of this already mentioned cross-channel mail. You see here a letter of 1732 from Eddington via London and France to Switzerland, a part of my collection Incoming Mail Switzerland. Thanks to the training by Leon, it was possible to explain the charges. But what does this mysterious postmark mean? Next, please. When questioning my friends of the FgGB, first hints at the British country catalogue by Wilcox and Jay came up. Other members then, over the years, sent me articles by James van der Linden and David Cornelius, which gave more detailed explanations. These postmarks, of which at least half a dozen different types have been identified, used in the 1730s. They were used to over-cancel and thus obscure the British amount of postage paid. We see 1 and 3, 1 shilling, 3 pence, over-cancelled and highlighted in red. This means 3 pence to London plus 1 shilling foreign rate to Switzerland. Theo, is it possible to show the cover again? The question remains, though, why this happened. In any case, the French demand 20 sols. You see it on the cover. From Calais to Switzerland. Was it the bad conscience of the British Post that they demanded so much money from the sender for the short transport to the coast? Has anybody got an idea? By the way, you can notice how helpful it is to be a member of such an inspiring community as FgGB. Not to forget all the happy hours with my friends. I look forward to seeing you all again after COVID-19. Thank you for your attention and enjoy the next lecture.
Thank you for that. And I can't see any questions at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, I will do the next bit for Detlef Siebert. Detlef is a very committed collector of modern postal history, especially the Machen stamps. And he sent me 3 covers. The first one was an insufficiently prepaid airmail letter, which was sent on 23rd of September 1969 from London to Limbe in Malawi. It was paid by a 4 pence and a 5 pence stamps, which are affixed, but correct postage for an airmail letter of this weight to Zone B would have been 1 shilling 6 pence, which means that the letter was underpaid by 9 pence. The returned letter office stamp of September 29, 1969 was initially applied because of the inadequate address and the missing sender's address. After a handwritten edition in red, try box 5391, the letter received a postage due postmark with a handwritten 18, which is twice the deficit, and an arrival stamp on the back of Limbe, September 30th. The letter was then delivered. The postage due fee of 18 pence was paid by 3 postage due stamps of 6 pence each from Malawi, cancelled on 3rd of October 1969. The next one is a registered letter. It is a registered inland letter of the first weight step up to 60 grams, dated January the 31st, 1980. Postage and registration fee were paid by a 75 pence Machin sheet stamp, which was issued on January the 30th, 1980. It was the first Machin stamp along with a 4 pence stamp, which was issued on the same date, to be produced using offset printing. The 75 pence franking is made up of 65 pence registration fee plus 10 pence postage fee for a first-class domestic letter of the first weight step. The special thing about this letter is the fact that due to an increase in postage rates on February the 4th, 1980, this single franking using this particular stamp was only possible for 5 days. The last one is a special delivery letter. It is a first-class standard domestic letter up to 100 grams with guaranteed delivery on the next working day by 1 p.m. Franked by a Machin sheet stamp issued especially for this purpose. This stamp was first issued on October 26, 2010. Unfortunately, only the year 2011 is legible in the hand stamp, so that the stamp had a value of either £5 and 5 pence or £5 45 pence as of April 4th, 2011. The special thing about this letter for Detlef is that it has been the only letter with this type of delivery that he has seen so far. But maybe that is because he lives on the continent and does not have easy access to mail like this. So much for that one.
There are no questions at this time.
So there's me again now doing this presentation for Uta, who's not there today. Very exotic and really completely out of my comfort zone. I was pleased to do it, and I learned something out of it. For those of you who, like me, have no idea where Somaliland is, here's a picture. So it's just on the Horn of Africa, over from Aden and at the start of the Red Sea. So geopolitically, quite an important area for us, for the Brits. So next one. Yes, and if you can see here, there are 3 towns marked. At the bottom, Obbia on the coast in Italian. In the middle, that's Bohotel, hopefully pronounced correctly, on the border between Italian and British Somaliland. And at the top, the third one, Berbera, which is also on the coast in British Somaliland. Those are the 3 towns we'll be talking about in a minute. And the other one is the Bali, which is about 90 miles off in the middle, where the final battle we're talking about here was fought. So next slide, please, Theo. Yes, there were 2 earlier campaigns which were partly successful, but not really to get enough to get rid of the dervishes. We all know about dervishes. This is where they actually came from. And to help, there were British field post offices set up at various stages during these campaigns, which actually went on continually until 1920, but we don't want to go that far. So Captain Manning, wasn't he from Dad's army? I think he was, wasn't he, or something? But he took over command and brought further troops to Obbia, then advanced with them to Bohotel. And the next slide, please. And the 4th campaign, we're doing the campaigns first. They were reinforced then, and the Mad Mullah was almost defeated in May 1904, but they carried on afterwards, and the British didn't really have any initiative to carry on fighting him. It wasn't until after the First World War that he got back and finally won in 1920. And at the end of that year, the Madmulla died, presumably of Spanish flu. He's still revered as a poet, and this statue of him is in Mogadishu. So next slide, please. Third campaign. This is, next slide, please. So this is the first cover we're showing. Unfortunately, we don't know who Miss Brown was. Maybe someone's girlfriend or fiance in Ireland. Don't actually know who sent the cover, but you can see there's a lot of information on the side already about where it came from, the routing it took to Ireland via Aden, etc. Important for this is that FPO number 44, which was the Obbia post office. This wasn't even signed by a commanding officer either, so it might have been rather illegally done. We don't really know completely. Next slide, please. So the second one, also in the third campaign, this is one going to Britain, to England, to Norwich, to an Admiral Pollard. Again, I couldn't find anything out about him, who Admiral Pollard actually was, and what connection he might have had with these campaigns. But this is from the second one. As you can see, the sign is from the FPO 45, so near Bohotel, after the troops had gone a bit further. This was after a few months later, or a month later on. So next one, yeah, and the last one, if we could go back briefly, thank you. The last campaign, this was the letter to Lady Brooke in France, and she's quite famous, the whole family of the Brookes and Benninghams in Ireland. This is a statue of her son, Alan Brooke, who was a chief advisor to Churchill during World War II. So now they put the slide, please. This is the actual cover, which is posted at the base office Berbera, so up on the north coast. And this, now we have, all of these, we're using Indian stamps because it was Indian post office being used. This one, the foreign rates are 2.5 annas versus the half annas on the earlier ones. And this is, so the 3 steps of the 3 places we saw earlier. And so questions or comments before we carry on to the next war, which I think Ingo is going to be presenting to us.
Now, there are no questions on that section.
Okay, so Ingo's next with the next war.
Hello all together. I hope you can hear me. I'm sitting not in Wesel today. I'm on holiday in Cuxhaven. You can look at the map behind me. This is a very extreme short time usage from the BEF, 15 May 1940, from the first day cover from the first Erste Panzerarmee in France. He was built after the disaster in Dunkirk, a little before, to help the troops to go to Le Havre. This usage sometimes 6 days. It's very, very important, and it's very hard to find, and you can't find in some boxes in the stamp fairs. Interesting is all these hand stamp cancellations goes not to Britain, returned not to Britain, and some of the hand stamps was damaged. Next time, please. Oh, yes, this one is the envelope, and you can see the stamp behind the Army Post Office cancellation. And with this letter, posted some cakes or cigarettes or things to the soldier. And Then it started the campaign at 10th of May, and all the flights from home to the soldiers must go back to at home. And this is a packet letter and go return to Britain. And it's very, very rare. Normally, it is rubbish or waste. And this one is going into my collection. And interesting is the transport to Britain, to France, to the soldiers is very some more. And the British troops has got problems for luxury things to send to Britain back to get some more money in Britain. Then the Wehrsold is going as normal. And luxury goods is champagne and perfume and what's the other one in France? Yeah, alcohol, so on. And it's a very, very important problem to brought all these things, and the persons, normal persons in France, are not amused about this because the shops are empty. Next one, please. Have you any askings for me?
No questions at the moment, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Axel? Axel?
Hallo, hört ihr mich?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Hello from Germany. I will show you some late fees of my collection, and I will start with the 6D late fee in 1842. Here you can see a letter of 14th February 1842, sent from Edinburgh to Kirkintilloch. And it should be very important because the sender paid not only the 1 penny postage, he paid 6 penny extra. And the letter arrived Glasgow at the next day. And there's no postmark from Kirkintilloch, but Kirkintilloch is only about 8 miles away from Glasgow. So I think the letter reached at the same day. I proposed, because the letter was so important, and I realized the date, it's 14th of February, perhaps there's a connection with Valentine's Day. Okay, next letter. Now a 3D late fee on a 10 pence stamp to order postal stationery with an additional halfpenny postmark. It's a letter of the third weight step, up to 1.5 ounces, and the postage rate was 7.5 pence. And in addition, a late fee of 3 pence was paid. You can see it in the postmark, in the hooded London number 1 late fee postmark. And although the sender paid 3 pence extra, so that the letter forwarded at the same day, the letter took 4 days to reach Leipzig. This was unusual time. Usual was about 2 days. And I wondered why the letter took 4 days, and I realized that it was sent at the 21st of February, 1898, and this day in Germany is Rosenmontag, which is the most popular day for the carnival season. And the letter was sent via Rhineland, and perhaps the postmen in the Rhineland were still drunk the carnival. Next. Now a 1 shilling late fee on a registration envelope from London to Hamburg. And here you can see it was posted on the 26th of November, 1998, and it reached Hamburg at the next day, the 27th November. And so it was a good investment because it should be very important. Now another late fee cover, last but not least. It's from London to Geneva in Switzerland. It shows the Western District black boxed L1 cancel. It's not that common, but not that unusual either. And what the cover makes unusual, it's the date of posting. It's exactly 148 years ago today. Happy birthday, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you. There are no questions. Just one comment saying that definitely nobody worked in the Rhineland on Monday or even Tuesday.
Yes, I think so.
Thank you.
Okay, it's my turn now. You know that I'm, or some of you will know that I'm a collector of pre-stamp material, and I always wondered, because it's being said that these covers were extremely expensive, and I always wondered how expensive they really were. And I would like to show you today a cover which was sent from Mexico to London in 1831. And it cost 12 shilling per ounce for the recipient. And as this cover weighed 2¼ ounces, the recipient had to pay £1.07, which is for most of you, maybe I have to explain. It's 2 times 12 shillings, 2 ounces, plus 3 shillings for the ¼ ounce, which is 27 shillings in total, or £1.07. Yeah, well, how much is that in? Yeah, how much is it worth? And I found several methods on the internet of converting the spending power of old and today's money. But all these methods provided different results, and in most cases, sometimes with great differences. So I have been looking for an alternative for quite some while, and I think I have found at least an interesting alternative by calculating the wages people earned in the 19th century. And I found a wage list of a silk mill in Essex of the 1860s with a lot of different people who worked there. And I picked out 3 professions which are still around today. An overseer or clerk earned 15 shillings to 32 shillings. A carpenter or blacksmith then earned 14 to 21 shillings, and a coachman or a van driver earned between 5 shillings and 10 shillings. This means that an overseer would have had to work about 60 hours to pay for this letter. A carpenter needed to work 90 hours, and a coachman or van driver even 162 hours, which is about 2½ weeks to earn £1.07. Now, if we convert this in today's money, if we calculate that a van driver today earns around £12 per hour, then we get as a result 162 hours times £12, which means £1,944 in today's money. And how long would a lorry driver have to work today to send a similar letter to Mexico, up to 100 grams? Only £2.42, which means he has to work around 12 minutes to pay for this letter today. So it's 12 minutes today and 162 hours in 1831. That's quite a difference. The second cover I would like to show you is a 4-penny post cover. You all know that the 4-penny post was only valid for a very short time, 5 weeks. And the rate for domestic mail was then reduced to 4 pence for a single letter weighing up to ½ ounce. But this was not true for mail to the continent, which was sent from towns beyond London. They were still charged according to the old rules, meaning they were calculated according to the number of sheets and the distance they traveled to London. And I have here a last day cover sent on the 9th of January 1840. It was sent from Yarmouth, Norfolk, and the distance from Yarmouth to London was 124 miles, which means it was charged in the mileage band of 120 to 170 miles, meaning 10 pence. And as these mileage charges for the letters sent abroad were calculated by the 1801 charges, it meant that they got a long distance rebate of 2 pence. The charge from Great Britain to the Italian border was 1 shilling 7 pence, which means in total 2 shilling 3 pence. It must have been quite an urgent letter, because if the sender had waited for 1 day until the 10th of January, when the uniform penny post was introduced, the inland charges were 0, and he only had to pay the 1 shilling 7 pence from Great Britain to the Italian border, meaning 1 shilling 7 pence, which makes a difference of 8 pence. So I don't know whether he didn't know that charges were much lower the next day, or whether the letter was really urgent. But 8 pence, as you saw before, is also was quite a bit of money in those days. Thank you.
Thank you. There no questions at this time.
Erich?
Hello to everybody from Hamburg. I would like to show you 3 covers, 3 early steam packet covers to Austria in the 1850s. The background is that after the Tolman packet was terminated, there was no regular mail to Australia, only ship letters, and there was a high demand for a regular steam package connection to Australia. Next slide. But there was already a steam packet connection to Singapore and to Hong Kong. You could use that for letters to Australia, but the problem was you had to find someone who would transport your cover from Singapore, for example, to Melbourne or to Sydney. So next one. There are such covers, they are rather rare. They had to be announced by overland mail and via Marseille. They cost the normal rate to Hong Kong, 1 shilling 10 pence at that time via Marseille. here with a 2 penny, maybe a late fee. And man in Australia had to pay 5 pence for the inland fee from Australia. The problem was to find someone who could really transport that, who could carry that cover from Singapore to Australia. And here you can see that 6 ships were necessary to carry that letter. First, the Admiralty packet to Malta, then P&O to Alexandria, P&O to Galle, P&O to Singapore, and then Argyll, which was a private ship which came from Manila and went via Singapore to Melbourne and arrived there, and then the normal Melbourne packet to Sydney. Next slide. In 1852, there was first talks about having a regular connection to Australia. The first company who quoted was Australian Royal Mail Steam Navigation Company, who got a contract from the middle of 1852, every 2 months sailing to Australia via the Cup route. The idea was to have 2 companies, each one sailing every 2 months. So there was a regular a monthly contract to Australia. Next. So it went around the Cup, but it's interesting the cover. Next one. This is a cover of the 6th sailing. The problem was that the that company was not very well prepared for that job, and they had only 5 ships. And when they came to the 6th sailing, all of the ships were somewhere for repair. So they had to ship from in April 1853, but there was no ship available. And so Royal Mail had to charter a ship which went from Liverpool to Australia. And that ship has problems as well. It left first on the 7th of April and then had to go back and sailed another time on the 16th. But this is a lovely cover which was sent by this ship with a pair of 10 pence embossed and 2 pence stamps to make up the 2 shilling rate for Australia, for a packet letter rate to Australia. The recipient had to pay 6 pence, which was double weight rate, inland rate of Australia in that time in Victoria. So last one, the other company who got the contract was P&O, which got a contract in 1853 for a branch line from Singapore to Australia. They worked very well. They started that line in March 1853 and really sailed every 2 months. Next stamp. This is one of the last sailing of that company in November 1852. Last sailing because that branch line was stopped afterwards because P&O had to deliver their ships for the Crimean War, and Australia had no longer any regular connection by steamships. So that cover is particular for different reasons. First reason is the last shipping of the last sailing of P&O. Second reason is the first sailing under the new empire rate of 6 pence, which meant that for via Marseille it was 11 pence, and for a double rate letter it was 1 shilling 4 pence, as for example here. And it was an all-in rate, which means the recipient in Australia had not to pay anything. That's why there is a 1 pence, which means 1 pence for the colony, which was included in the rate of Britain. And finally, it's a very nice cover with a 10 pence and a 6 pence embossed together. Here you can see how that line, how that connection of P&O was running via Malta, Alexandria, Galle, Singapore, and the side branch to Australia going from Singapore to Sydney. So, any questions or comments to what I presented?
No questions on that. Thank you very much.
Howard, I hope you're relieved. Exactly 1 hour.
I'm going to say congratulations on exactly
On the spot.
3 o'clock UK time, 4 o'clock German and Swiss time. You could not have timed that one better. Hang on, let's.
There's German punctuality for you.
The host has disabled my vision, so I don't know. It's nothing I can do about it. Sorry, I'm a little blob. But it's
So you can rely on the Germans on punctuality.
Yes, it was the Swiss I was worried about. No, well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for a fantastic show.
Yeah.
What have we seen? We've seen postage dues, we've seen express mail, we've seen British royal couples in love, rarities of literature, Machin postal history. I must say, I've always wanted to own a 75 pence black on its own on a cover, and that is only the second one I've ever seen. It's one of my ambitions. So if you've got a spare one, then you know where it could have a home.
Can live in hope.
Utador with James Hill as on Somaliland, British Expeditionary Force in France, late fees, some very rare items there. I love those high postage rates. They're really, really great fun on that. And steam packets to Australia. We've had a real treat from people who obviously know and love their subject and have put enthusiasm and thought and a lot of study into what they have been showing us, which I must say it is very much appreciated by all members of the GBPS who are on this. This has been filmed, so you can see it on YouTube as a member in the game, so very much our thanks. This is work to treat. As I say, it was the first one we've tried in terms of multiple showings, and it seems to have worked extremely well. If we can get people to time it like you have, then we will. That will be very good indeed. So, with that, you have got here on the screen a token of appreciation. It's not the normal glass one that we give to presenters. It has to be a virtual one here. We would. There you are. Thank you very much for that. There are.
Thank you,
Chris. Just to say, I do actually have the physical ones in my hand, but we just need to get them to you at some point. Whether that's in person or I just stick them in the post is another matter we can discuss later. But yes, you have them.